for our viewers. And we move ahead now. The Pentagon has placed about 1,500 active duty U.S. soldiers on prepare to deploy orders amid escalating protests in Minnesota linked to the government's deportation drive. U.S. media report the move is precautionary as tension rises in Minneapolis following confrontations between residents and federal immigration officers. The White House says it is standard for the Pentagon to be ready for any presidential decision. President Trump has warned he could invoke the Insurrection Act if state officials fail to stop protesters from targeting ICE agents. The troops identified for possible deployment are trained in cold weather operations and are based in Alaska. Minnesota's governor has already mobilized the state's National Guard. Local leaders accuse the president of federal overreach, as Washington argues the measures are needed to protect federal personnel and property. Andrew Latham, who is international affairs expert from Minneapolis, joins me in this discussion. Andrew, why do you think Trump is ordering the troop deployment on standby as of now? What really has triggered him?
Well, it's important to recognize, as you just did, that these troops are being put on standby. The Insurrection Act has not yet been invoked, and so these federal troops would have no authority. But they're getting ready, both on the legal side, the administration is getting ready, and on the practical military side, they're getting ready as well. Why now? Well, there's a growing sense of frustration on the part of all parties. The people of this state, Minnesota, are not happy with this federal immigration surge, and the state government is responding as you might expect. It is channeling that frustration, and there is a tension between the federal immigration enforcement efforts and the state efforts to look after the interests of the population of the state, let's put it that way. And so I think Trump is getting frustrated now, and he's signaling the way he often does, that I'm going to escalate, I'm going to ramp things up if I don't get my way. And it remains to be seen if he will get his way, and if not, if he will actually invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy the 101st Airborne Division, which is a combat division, to Minnesota.
All right, sure. Andrew, stay on with us. In fact, we have some posts that have also been shared by Donald Trump on his Truth Social. Now, Trump has defended his immigration enforcement in Minnesota, saying ICE is removing some of the most violent criminals from the country and returning them home where they belong. Trump made these comments on his Truth Social platform, where he questioned why Minnesota leaders are resisting, accusing protesters of being professional agitators. He also tagged state officials, claiming they are diverting attention from fraud issues. The president insisted his administration is on the case, framing the operation as a public safety priority amid ongoing protests. Donald Trump's post on your screens, viewers, I like to quote it: ICE is removing some of the most violent criminals in the world from our country and bringing them back home where they belong. Why is Minnesota fighting this? Do they really want murderers and drug dealers to be ensconced in their community? The thugs that are protesting include many highly paid professional agitators and anarchists. Is this really what Minnesota wants? The crooked governor and Congresswoman Omar, who married her brother, don't mind because it keeps the focus on attention of the $18 billion plus fraud that has taken place in the state. Don't worry, we're on it. All right, I invite Andrew to join me back here. Andrew, what do you think? Who do you think Trump is referring to? What is this fraud about? Why target Omar once again? And who are these paid professional agitators?
Well, he's referring to a scandal in the state of Minnesota involving, during the COVID era, large amounts of federal funds to fund daycare centers and things like that. and there was a great deal of fraud, some of it associated with the Somali migrant community, and Ilhan Omar comes out of that community. And so that's got everything on Trump's radar. Now, Trump may be right on the margins, but the perception here in this state is that this is a massive overreaction. It's racialized, it's targeting the Somali community and other people of color, that it is terrorizing. These ICE agents are going into elementary schools looking for children of undocumented migrants, people in higher education who are here legitimately on study visas are scared to leave their apartments. This is being perceived on the grassroots level in the state of Minnesota as massive overreaction, as a surge which is terrorizing the local population. So if there are some benefits on the margins, they are on the margins. The big impact, and this is being expressed by the mayor of Minneapolis, Fry, and by the state's governor, Walz, this is too much. This is overkill, and it needs to be dialed down. Donald Trump, of course, has come to the opposite conclusion. He thinks this is somehow working, and he wants to dial it up. And if the state authorities cannot provide adequate protection in his mind for these immigration agents, he'll use the 101st Airborne to make sure that they can do their job. So we have here a real sort of a classical clash between federal authority and state authority, federal overreach, in my judgment at this point, and the reaction of the people of the state of Minnesota. And then, of course, there's a racial dimension. This is America. There's a racial dimension layered on top of that as well. All of this makes for a toxic brew, which we are enduring at the moment. And as his habit, the president is not dialing things down. He's dialing the tension up.
All right. How do you think this is going to weigh in on the upcoming midterms?
Well, Minnesota is a fairly safe democratic state, so that's not going to change. This is going to become an even more democratic state. It depends on how people across the country are viewing this. I mean, Minnesota has taken the brunt of this surge in immigration enforcement. The Minneapolis operation was the largest in ICE's history, for example. It depends on how this effort touches down in other states. It depends on how his base reacts to this somewhat favorably, I think, if news reports can be trusted on this. It depends on how the undecideds are looking at this, and they're not looking at it very favorably. And then you need to put that in the context of the economy and his foreign policy vis-a-vis Greenland and Venezuela and perhaps Iran. And you put all of that together, and things are not looking good for the Republicans at the midterm, despite what Donald Trump thinks are his efforts to reverse that by appearing strong on the international stage, by appearing strong in terms of enforcing domestic law, immigration law. His efforts seem to be backfiring. It's some time yet to the midterms. Things may change, but right now, if they were held today, the Republicans, I think, would suffer a resounding loss, and that would redound to the disadvantage of this president, even though he can't run again in the future.
Andrew, thanks very much for joining us.